In the headlines, diplomat accuses some U.S. senators and congressmen of wanting to railroad Ethiopia. U.S. pledges more support for the rebuilding efforts in humanitarian crisis in Afar state. Hello there, welcome to ETV News. I am Grum Tariku. The so-called Ethiopian Peace and Democracy Promotion Act of 2021, otherwise known as S3199, is nothing but a resolution that would dictate policy to Ethiopia, violating its sovereignty. Drafted by some members of the 100-seat U.S. Senate, the S3199 is meant to head Ethiopia over allegations of human rights abuses, rule of law, charges of genocide and ethnic cleansing in an effort to force the government to submit. The resolution sidesteps several key elements in evaluating the conflict in Ethiopia and the human rights crisis, thus failing to bring about stability, peace and democracy. Staff reporter Arola Teklemariam takes up a closer look at the bill and its implications.
A punitive bill, sugar-coated Ethiopia Peace and Democracy Act of 2021, was introduced to the upper house of the U.S. bicameral chamber back in November 2021 by 3 Senate members, namely Jim Risch, Bob Menendez, and Chris Coons. It blatantly accuses the Ethiopian government of continuing to impose wide-ranging bureaucratic obstacles, despite repeated promises to allow unfettered humanitarian access to Tigray. The bill essentially seeks to achieve a coordinated imposition of multilateral sanctions and export controls on Ethiopia, while clearly threatening to suspend all U.S. security assistance being provided to Ethiopia. The bill goes on to state that the U.S. shall consistently turn the tables against provisions of assistance or aid by multilateral organizations to Ethiopia. The U.S. has no right under international law to violate Ethiopia's sovereignty with H.R. 6600 and S3199.
In fact, both bills would infringe on Ethiopia's sovereignty, and they would set up Ethiopia essentially to be governed and controlled and monitored by branches of the U.S. government.
The bill is said to ignore the TPLF's initial attack on the Ethiopian National Defense Force base on November 3, 2020, which launched the current crisis. It also overlooks TPLF's refusal to observe the Ethiopian government's unilateral ceasefire in June 2021 and their expansion of the conflict outside Tigray. The bill also neglects the peace and reconciliation undergoing efforts, which include allowing humanitarian access through airlift and hundreds of trucks to Tigray region.
We don't support these resolutions. We do not support them. We are against them. That's what I believe the United States State Department is telling the Ethiopian government in Addis and in Washington. However, I don't trust the State Department.
Despite TPLF's continuous belligerence, the Ethiopian government has taken significant actions in the past 4 months towards ending the conflict and to bringing peace in Ethiopia. These steps have been acknowledged by the international community, including the AU, EU, and the UN. Thousands of Ethiopians and Eritreans have been denouncing the bill in a wave of protesters. The protesters said S3199 is poised to essentially make Ethiopia a U.S. colony and should be cancelled. They further underscore that the bill targets every existence of Ethiopian and that it will harm Ethio-U.S. relations.
A seasoned Ethiopian diplomat accuses some U.S. senators and congressmen of wanting to railroad Ethiopia. An economics professional by training, Trunesh Zena has devoted much of his professional life to diplomacy. His diplomatic career stretched over 30 years and has served his country in many diplomatic missions around the world. Talking to ETV here yesterday, Trunesh said the U.S. stepped up pressures with punitive sanctions while confronted with a firm and principled Ethiopia. Jerusalem Bazaar sat down with a diplomat and compiled the following first-person story. Take a look.
I started diplomatic service 1977. 30 plus years I served in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I worked mostly in New York as the United Nations and Brussels with EU. My area of concentration is, I could say, multilateral. Of course, that does not mean I didn't serve in any bilateral area. I served in Germany, in what we call East Germany, German Democratic Republic, for a short time in South Korea and Ghana. Every country has its own challenge. But the challenges in Ethiopia are frequent and sometimes not easy ones. That's because Ethiopians tend not to be dictated by others. You know, when you intend to run your independent foreign policy as a developing country, as a poor country, such as Ethiopia, you face pressures here and there because you are vulnerable, isn't it? Yeah, so Ethiopia faced that time and again. Not today, probably 100 years ago. The present resolution submitted to the Congress by some Congress members, 6600 and the S3199, yeah, those two resolutions are the continuation of the pressure that started when Ethiopia refused to accept the dictation of the United Nations, the United States authorities. But if you look at it, you know, there is no need at this time to present those resolutions to the Congress, because whatever required in the resolution have been undertaken by the Ethiopian government. The cessation of hostility, so that the humanitarian aid could reach Tigray without any problem. Unfettered access to humanitarian aid. This was one of the things that was mentioned in the resolution, which is to make accountable the people involved during the conflict in the human rights abuses. UN Office High Commissioner in Ethiopia and with Ethiopian Human Rights Commission are undertaking the case against those involved. There is a suggestion for dialogue, national inclusive dialogue. And the Ethiopian government has already set up a commission. We can ask ourselves, why are these resolutions are at Congress? And this resolution is undermining the good relations that existed between the two countries for 100 years, over 100 years. If those people are rational, I don't think they will pass those resolutions, because the world community will look at it and will know what is happening in Ethiopia and would say, what is this? It will be very much puzzling if those laws are really passed by the Senate and the Congress and signed by the President.
U.S. Ambassador to Ethiopia Tracy Jacobson pledged more support for rehabilitation efforts and elevate humanitarian crisis affecting Afar region in Ethiopia. Ambassador Jacobson traveled to Ethiopia's Afar state to have first-hand information to recovery and humanitarian assistance efforts being conducted by USAID. She met the state's President Awal Abra while in Samara and launched the USAID's surging emergency support for children and schools affected by conflicts across Afar. Ambassador Jacobson pledged continued support from the U.S. towards the region's recovery, including direct humanitarian aid for those displaced by the conflict. So far in 2022, the U.S. has committed roughly $90 million in Afar, including about $50 million in the development of the region and another $40 million in urgently needed humanitarian aid. The USAID is also providing psychosocial support to the students at these schools to help them cope with distressing effects of the conflict and displacement.
የጅማ አይከን የሆነው አባ ጅፋር አደባባይ እዛ እገኛለሁ። እቺኛዋ የምታዩት የመጀመሪያው ቆንጆዋ በሬዱ ጅማ የሆነች አንድ ጀርመናዊ ወዷት አግብቷት ጀርመን የወሰዳት ልጅ የሰቃ ፏፏቴ ወንዝ ይሄንን ይመስላል። እንደምታዩት በጣም ደስ ይላል። በክረምት ነው የመጣ ነው እና ሞላ ብሏል። አባይ መስሏል። ሌላ አባይ አለን ትላል። ስለዚህ ሀገሬ በተፈጥሮ ሀገራችን ኢትዮጵያ በተፈጥሮ የታደለች ሀገር ናትና መጣችሁ እንድትጎበኙ ጋብዛቸዋለሁ።
You are watching ETV News. Former leader of the Oromo Liberation Front, OLF, Galasa Dilbo, was well known in advocating peaceful struggle, has passed away. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has expressed condolences over the death of Galasa, one of the politicians to make it back home following an era of reform ushered in the beginning of March 2018. Galasa returned home in response to the call made by the reformist government and joined the peaceful political struggle in the country. Galasa was a member of the Ethiopia's 547-seat parliament as an independent politician. Prime Minister Abiy said Galasa has advocated freedom of the Oromo people, beginning the student movement of the 1970s. The Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, announced that the Regional Blue Economy Strategy will serve as a framework to guide the development of the National Blue Economy Strategy of member states. Talking to Ethiopian News Agency, IGAD Secretariat Environment Protection and Agriculture Program Manager and Blue Economy Coordinator, Ishete Dejane, said the water tower of Africa, the region embraces the leading blue economy potential in the continent. Shagai Mato has the details.
The Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, prepared Regional Bloc's 5 years Blue Economy Strategy to be endorsed by its ministerial meeting on Friday. The Intergovernmental Authority on Development announced that the Regional Blue Economy Strategy will serve as a framework to guide the development of the National Blue Economy Strategy of the member states. Talking to Ethiopian News Agency, IGAD Secretariat Environment Protection and Agriculture Program Manager and Blue Economy Coordinator Ishete Dejane said, as the region is the water tower of Africa, it embraces the leading blue economy potentials in the continent. Having the Blue Economy Strategy enables member states to design a collective policy towards harnessing the untapped water-related potentials, such as water transport, fisheries, port development, and water tourism, among others, he underscored. As to him, the strategy will have a fundamental role in creating a sustainable environmental protection system beyond its significant socio-economic benefits. More importantly, the strategy sought to harness the region's untapped water potentials by creating an effective channel for the blue economy sector, he said. For her part, Ethiopian focal person of blue economy at the IGAD, Aneni Kajela, said The Blue Economy Strategy is an important framework for developing and utilizing transboundary rivers and the region's sea resources peacefully and together. The endorsement of the Blue Economy Strategy contributes a lot to facilitate Ethiopia's port service demand, shipping and transport access, as well as exporting hydropower to the member countries, she said. The Somali National Maritime Coordinator and Director of Blue Economy, Muntazia Jamal, on her part said, Somalia is ready to reap the resource in collaboration with other countries.
Working with the member states in IGAD, I think it plays a big role as an for Somali perspective. I think it's more about collaboration. And when we look at the geopolitics, standards, economical, and so many aspects, I think it will open Somalia an eye-opening to learn fast experience member IGAD states who already advanced the blue economy, so-called the blue growth. And we have so much to catch up and so much to learn, but we're taking our steps ahead.
IGAD Executive Secretary Representative Jahar Ilmi on his part said strengthening the regional strategic cooperation will speed up economic integration in the region.
Develop strong harmonizing regional blue economy initiatives for increased cooperations and regional integrations by using the blue economy as a catalyst to stimulate a converging dynamic of interest and efforts.
Ethiopia expects the effective implementation of the strategy towards expediting its economic development and creating numerous job opportunities in the blue economy sector. It is to be recalled that the African Union has identified blue economy development as a priority goal towards achieving the aspiration of a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development within the context of the African Union Agenda 2063.